ahead and bring in Jonathon Jackson. He is a reporter and anchor at WNEM CBS Channel 5 up in Saginaw. But Jonathon used to be one of our own here at Civic Center TV. Jonathon, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing?
Wonderful.
The question is, how are you doing? What has this been like for you?
Oh, Ronnie, it's been interesting to say the least. Ever since this pandemic hit, work has changed so much, and basically, I'm at home right now, and I've been working from home for the past 6 months, basically. So, yeah, kind of the norm right now for us.
So, how does a reporter work from home when it's such a social job?
Well, I'll say there are pros and cons to it. Obviously, being able to do interviews now through Zoom and online are actually a lot easier. We get 5 minutes with them, and then they can go on to do, what they want with their day. I'd say the cons, though, are, again, you don't have that face-to-face interaction. Usually that we get that kind of helps out with interviews sometimes and clears up any miscommunication or something like that. But I would say, yeah, being from home, it comes with its own benefits, but there's nothing really that beats that face-to-face contact. Like I wish I could have with you guys now. That'd be great.
Jonathon Jackson with us, former Civic Center TV reporter and anchor on shows such as The Splash. Currently a reporter and anchor at WNEM CBS Channel 5 in Saginaw, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Jonathon, so much has changed in just the last 6 months in reporting the news. Yes, of course, it goes to the virtual angles that we're taking now. You're doing your interviews over Zoom. We're doing this interview entirely over Zoom as well, and reporting out in the field has definitely changed as well. Overall, how do you believe, as a relatively young journalist in this industry and seeing this drastic change, what do you believe is going to be the lasting impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on reporting like you do?
Well, I'd say one of the lasting impacts might be the fact that, again, these online interviews might be the future in terms of at least gathering and reporting for a lot of journalists, I feel. Again, the convenience of being able to call up somebody, from a faraway location rather than having to travel to them. There's a lot of good benefits to that. Transportation can be kind of one of the hindering factors in journalism when you're trying to get that last minute interview, so being able to do Zoom and all that, pretty beneficial. And I see that continuing even after this pandemic is probably gone. So I'd say that is a benefit. And then also just being able, again, to, sending stuff from home and working from home. I think some journalists are really enjoying that. And there's not always a need to be in the station. That's something that I think some of us are learning, and some reporters are pushing to be working more from home nowadays. So I see that might continue again, even after all this is over.
Jonathon, do you go into the station at all?
Ronnie, well, I usually go in when I'm anchoring. That's pretty much the only time. When I'm reporting, they usually keep me at home unless there's a major breaking story that just absolutely requires my presence in the studio. But yeah, mostly just anchoring is the reason for it.
Yeah, technology has definitely aided in the journalism field. Are you a one-man band, or what we call a one-man band in the business, which means you write, shoot, and edit all your own stuff?
I am indeed multimedia journalist, MMJs as they call us out there every day, fighting the good fight and trying to do everything by ourselves, which can be fun and also very challenging. I say fun, though, because you get to control everything when you write and create your story. You write it, you edit it, you send it, all that. It's all your creative direction. But also the downside would be, it is all on you as well. And there's a little bit of pressure that comes with that. And, just a lot of hard work, too. So, if you are, a young journalist who want to get into this field, more than likely you'll start out as an MMJ. And if you have that drive and passion to do it, go for it.
So, Jonathon, I want to ask you, you are from Michigan, which is good, but what's it been since you are home so much alone? How are you handling the isolation of being by yourself so much? Because there is a mental component to this.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I'm more of an introvert, which always surprises people because, like, how can you be an introvert in this field? You talk to people every day and all that. But, it's the isolation kind of factor at first didn't bother me too much. I was like, okay, work from home, call somebody up through Zoom and do the interview there, then, put everything together right here in my, bedroom or living room, nice and easy. But after a couple months, yeah, it does start to weigh on you a bit. I found myself actually looking forward to being called into the studio sometimes, when I get to anchor, or like I said, whenever we have a big breaking story, usually they say, okay, well, we're going to social distance you in the newsroom. So, maybe you stay on this side, the other reporters on the other side, producers on this side. And yeah, I found myself saying, yes, I very much look forward to coming into the station and doing some work there, because it also gives you a change of pace. You can only stare at your bedroom walls so much before you start losing your mind a little bit.
Jonathon Jackson with us, reporter and anchor at WNEM CBS Channel 5 in Saginaw, former reporter and anchor here as well at Civic Center TV with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Jonathon, so much of what you did with us here at Civic Center TV focused on the community and telling stories from a community angle, telling stories about people and how those people's stories ultimately impacted the rest of the greater community. Over the course of the pandemic, have you seen there be a shift in citywide news and traditional news to be more of a focus on the community than ever before?
Oh, Tyler, yeah, definitely. I mean, when we're all going through the same thing, community becomes a big part of how we all pull through together. And, even up here, I'll say in, mid-Michigan, we've had a lot of stuff going on recently. One of our biggest news stories that broke back in May was the Edenville and Sanford Dam's failure, which caused a lot of flooding damage to the Sanford and Midland areas. And during a pandemic, it's so hard to social distance for these people who have to get out of their homes and try and gather up what's left of their belongings from all this flooding. And we've seen tremendous community support and gathering together to help out those who've been affected by the floods and who are also trying to just find a new space to live during this pandemic. So I'd say for sure, yeah, community is going to be a big thing moving forward. And, for all of us going through the rest of this year, we have to pull together and support each other. We're seeing that through fundraisers for small businesses. We've seen that through, trying to GoFundMe's for those with health and medical expenses who, can't afford to be in, a nursing home or something like that. So, yeah, it's definitely far more community focused lately in news, and that's good to see. I love doing stories like that focus on the community and how people can help out one another during this difficult time.
Jonathon is someone who is fairly new into the business. What's it like for you to see the shift from journalism in the public view and fake news? And sometimes you feel like journalists are a target now for what's going on in the community. How are you handling that? And do you feel like you have to defend the industry?
Yeah, sometimes I do. They say to a lot of our younger journalists starting out, try to have a thick skin, because not everybody obviously likes the news right now. And while they may call us fake news or, defund the media or all this other stuff, you just got to pull through it and remember that you're doing a job and giving information there's a lot of people who still need us and still want us out there doing what we need to do. So I try and keep that in mind. But I also say to my fellow journalists as well, pull together. Don't ever feel like you have to do this alone. Remember, there are other people out there going through the same thing. We are, a unit, so we've got to help each other out. And yeah, during this, period, there's a lot of, that fake news spreading around, but, remember that we're still doing a job. And for those who need us, we'll be there.
Jonathon Jackson with us. He is a reporter and anchor up at WNEM CBS Channel 5. You focus on Saginaw up in that area. Tell us, what are the big stories that you're covering right now? Of course, COVID-19 and the pandemic, but what else is going on up in Saginaw?
Well, there's a lot. I'd say what's going on right now mostly is a lot of, again, like I mentioned, the Midland and Sanford area, the flooding. We've also seen a lot of protest, out of the George Floyd and, how that's affected the community, and just other local things. A lot of small businesses, like I mentioned, going under, and people trying to find a way to survive or keep themselves going during this. So I'd say those are some of the bigger stories we've seen lately. And then I cover also the Flint area as well. They just announced they got a new police chief in Flint, and of course the $600 million settlement for those in the Flint area from the water crisis was another big story that broke. So yeah, we are definitely busy up here in mid-Michigan, and there's not really been a slow moment ever since this pandemic started.
Jonathon Jackson with us. He's a reporter and anchor at WNEM CBS Channel 5 in Saginaw with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. You recognize Jonathon from his time, of course, with us at Civic Center TV as our ace reporter and anchor, and including shows such as The Splash, our news magazine, all throughout the greater West Bloomfield area on Civic Center TV, and of course on 89.3 Lakes FM. So Jonathon, just a few more minutes with you here on the program today. As a journalist that has transitioned from our station, which does news in its own format, to a different station in a different market that's more of a traditional news, what were some of those adjustments that you made over that time that had to be made in order for you to comfortably ease into that new role, and how did your time reporting with us and what we do here help you grow into that position?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, one thing, Tyler, I think that is we use cameras there at Civic Center TV. Everybody has, got to learn how to use one and edit as well through Adobe Premiere and all that. So I feel learning how to shoot and edit really helped before I moved on to a more traditional station where they kind of threw me in right away. As an MMJ, again, you have to kind of do everything yourself when it comes to editing, writing, and sending to the show and all that. So I'd say that definitely helped me in the transition, with interviews and all of the other things I've learned from Civic Center and Splash, getting to talk with a lot of great guests and meet with a lot of different people. It really helps you get hit the ground running when I started here in Saginaw. And from that, it's been really great, a great transition so far. I've really enjoyed my time up here. It's a lot different than the more Metro Detroit area, in that I'd say it's quieter, at night, not as much city noise, but it actually does kind of help me with sleeping. So, yeah.
So, Jonathon, how do you decide which stories you're going to cover each and every day? I think the general public would find that interesting.
So basically what we do is our morning meeting. Every morning is about, half an hour or so. We discuss the big stories of the day, kind of like what you guys do at the top of the show, and pick and choose which ones are most viable for today and which ones we can get to. When it comes to being in this pandemic, again, those meetings are all through Zoom, and it's more of a race against the clock to figure out, okay, how can we do this both safely, social distancing, and also get this, meet deadline? So that's when a lot of those Zoom interviews come in handy. But also, if we do have to go to a story, it's very interesting to watch as, we can't ride in the same car together. Reporters and photogs have to ride in separate cars. And if you go live too, it's even more hectic because one person has to be in the truck while the other person has to stay outside the truck. And then vice versa, when we're doing our live shots, they have to be at least 6 feet apart, and they measure it out with their, the cords and everything. So it's definitely different. But yeah, when we're picking our stories for the day, it's all about basically what can we get to, and our news director kind of has a lot of input on that. She'll let us know, okay, this is what I want, and then the producers talk about, okay, pick out which reporter can go to which story, and then that's pretty much how it is. Yeah, it's boom, boom, boom.
Jonathon Jackson with us, currently a reporter and anchor at WNEM CBS Channel 5 in Saginaw, former reporter here at Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Jonathon, just another couple minutes with you before we got to let you go. Anything else you'd like to discuss today on the program with us, or other news that we haven't touched on in today's interview?
I'm mostly curious about how things are going over there. I've seen a bit of the MegaCast, and I know you guys are adapting to this format. How are you guys liking the radio so far, and how's the Splash doing? I am curious always to know about the Splash.
Well, the Splash, we haven't been doing that over the course of the pandemic. That we suspended that production just before because, as you know, it is so in depth out in the field, and It's not something that we were really privy to be doing during the pandemic for safety reasons, and a lot of things were immediately shut down. But in terms of the MegaCast, it's been an interesting experiment, definitely a good exercise in adjusting quickly and changing format, but still providing the same news coverage that we need to, and the public expects of us each and every day, albeit in a different way, and in a way that I think that the public appreciates differently than the Splash as well.
So,
right, well,
Jonathon, before we let you go, what advice would you give to other young journalists who are thinking about getting into news?
Good question. Yeah, I would say if you're thinking about getting into news, definitely consider one, learning to do more than probably what you expect when it comes to interviews. And like I said, editing and shooting. You know, most reporters, when they start out, will be MMJs. That's what a lot of news stations are looking for somebody who can kind of do it all. And then you can slowly transition if you want to like anchor or do more out of, more in studio stuff. Make sure when you're in school, take those journalism classes, those writing classes. And then also, if there's a video production class, learn how to use the camera, learn how to use editing software, and just have a passion for have a creativity, a drive to do this, and yeah, you'll definitely go far. I feel if you have the passion, if you have the drive, know that there's going to be hard days and some easy days too, but a lot of hard days because you will probably be by yourself a lot. But if again, it's fun. It's a lot of fun work. I always say I never do the same thing twice, really, and each day's different. And if you're at your desk, really, you're probably not doing your job because reporters are always on the move. So, yeah, definitely, if you like something with a lot of excitement, a lot of moving, a lot of action, this is probably a great career choice for you.
News doesn't happen in the newsroom. Quickly, can you talk a little bit about social media and its impact on journalism and how important it is for young journalists to really understand social media and utilize it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Social media is key in a lot of our stories lately, actually, especially now. I'd say being able to communicate with people over Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these other platforms, which is a lot of way of reaching out and finding out what's going on in the community right now. Because while people may not be, telling you, forthright on social media, a lot of these hidden stories are, where we find them, and that's how they turn into bigger stories. So yes, and I also say, a lot of people nowadays are more used to using social media. So that's a good thing. You have it, continue to use it, expand upon it. And it's definitely going to become an even bigger growing trend in the industry, I see, at least in the years ahead.
Well, Jonathon, thank you very much for being with us today. We appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you so much, guys. Always a pleasure.